In the heart of an unforgiving wilderness, a team of elite operatives
Stay alert. This isn't just another mission.
ventures into the unknown. Against an unseen terror.
This isn't a rescue mission. It's survival.
What could have done this?
Kill it. Whatever it is, take it down.
Where survival is the only option.
We won't stop. We can't fail.
It was a Project Threshold story by Crawford.
Jumping out of the copter, they spread out in a halo at the drop point. Talise Randall surveyed the hillside as her team and two others fanned out around her. She stood calf-high in snow, more of it coming down all the time. Callie Jane took up position on her right, Bodie Parker on her left. She heard Milla Drake crunching through the snow behind her. The other two teams flanked her sides. Talise hadn't wanted the extra people. She liked going in quiet with the people she knew. Command ordered otherwise. Berger was on a hunt in the Everglades, and Kurt and Cass still tracked some supernatural nonsense in the Utah desert. Riker's crowd kept quiet, but they covered a lot of ground overseeing all of Alaska. Talise's team represented the most rested. Their last mission happened a little over a week ago. Everyone crowded in, and Talise waited for the chopper to take off, ducking against the wind and the cut of the snow. Not quite noon. The overcast sky offered enough light, and she had no intentions of staying after dark.
You all listened to the 911 call that came in yesterday from the cabin. Threshold picked up a huge electromagnetic spike in the area. No one answered further calls at the cabin, and 2 park rangers never returned after checking on them. We're going in. This was the best spot for drop-off.
Talise continued, eyeing them individually.
We've got some hoofing to do. I've got the cabin on GPS, and I'll lead us in. Timmer, you and yours flank our left side.
Talise eyed the other commander.
Robbins, you're on my right. I know we're all wearing the spiderweave armor underneath our regular armor, but it doesn't make us invincible. If we lose someone, you grab them unless it threatens your safety. Project Threshold doesn't want anyone playing hero. They want us all back alive. Any questions?
Robbins and Timmer shook their heads.
We go quick but careful. Keep your eyes and ears alert. If I tell you to run, you do it. Let's go.
Talise tromped down the hill, wading through the snow. It wasn't a bad day aside from the frosty temperatures. The snow decorated the slumbering trees, creating a Christmas card scene. She led them into the tree line, occasionally checking the GPS screen on her wrist. Everyone wore one in case they got separated. Pickup happened just before dusk, or when she called it in. Kali kept to her side, the barrel of her scar aimed toward the trees. They all carried modified weapons and experimental ammunition, theoretically designed to have more punch and power. The last few assignments brought a lot of casualties, and Threshold's R&D team worked non-stop on new weapons to bring down monsters. Body hefted what Command called the rocket gun. It looked similar to a thicker, long-barreled shotgun, but fired explosive rounds from a clip. His armor sported an extra pad for his shoulder because it felt like getting smashed by a home run swing every time you pulled the trigger. She kept him firmly in front because it was loud as hell and you didn't want to be near it when he fired.
You know everybody's gone there.
Milla said from over her shoulder.
Doesn't matter. We're going in.
I know. I'm just saying. This isn't a rescue mission, no matter what Command says. We all know it's recon and kill whatever we run into.
And?
Do the rest of them know that?
Milla asked, her face as a twist of contempt and stony pragmatism.
Do they get... We're not going to save anyone other than maybe our own asses?
They know. Just keep it together, Milla.
Talise received a snort in response. Trudging through the snow, they continued weaving through the trees. Marching downhill helped their time, but it also meant returning uphill to reach evac. Talise determined to remember that detail in case they had to haul ass in a hurry. It took the better part of an hour to reach the cabin. They occasionally spotted a rabbit or a buck. Plenty of birds called out, which relaxed Talise. Animals and nature noise meant they weren't on edge. Callie stopped and knelt behind a tree, her mop of black hair tucked under her helmet but spilling out from underneath. She refused to cut it, her holdout against the usual military protocol. They weren't normal military, and given their line of work, Command allowed idiosyncrasies to a point. Kali's personality matched her name, and she wasn't afraid to tell the higher-ups to fuck off. Talise sighted the cabin and whistled. stopping everyone. Coming in from the rear, they all saw the remains of the Three Seasons back porch. The inner door was nowhere to be seen, and the screen lay on the steps, torn and hanging, caked with falling snow. A chunk of the roof near the back door looked chewed, and several of the supports hung listlessly, snapped and dangling. It looked like something big charged and smashed the entrance.
Bear?
Body asked.
Bigger.
Milla answered. Talise looked for tracks, but the snowfall covered everything in several inches. Above, it didn't look likely to quit anytime soon. She checked the other three-person teams positioning themselves on either side of her. Somewhere a crow called out.
Timmer, you and your team stay right where you are. Watch our backs. Robbins, work your way toward the front to the road leading in.
And she turned off her mic.
Kali, you getting anything?
Kali stared straight ahead. Silence drew out.
Not so far. You?
I have to be able to concentrate. Nothing.
And she flipped the mic back on.
We're going inside.
Talise led the way, slipping down the hill toward the back porch. She heard safeties clicking off and glanced sideways to ensure Bodhi pointed his bomb thrower anywhere other than her. Despite looking like a college frat boy, he kept his head in the game. She trusted him. It was the nervous ritual she always ticked through every mission. Reaching the porch, she eyed the wood steps. The lowest board, broken in the middle, looked as if a massive weight snapped it. Same with the top board. The path to the doorway showed more boards partially crushed in. She spotted pieces of a propane grill, crushed like a beer can, lying next to a picnic table. Stepping over the broken boards, she headed to the door frame. It looked like something shoved the wood apart and appearing as if someone had driven a pickup through the entrance. Talise listened for several seconds, but she heard no sounds and saw no movement.
Go in?
Callie asked. Tallis frowned. The damage felt off. She let her eyes roll over it a few times before realizing the problem. The door frame pieces lay out on the deck.
Whatever it is exited this way.
She told them.
Let's stay quiet and keep it to recon for the moment. Head out and around to the front. See if it's open.
They backed away, heading down the steps. Milla slipped out in front. They edged toward the front of the cabin. Built sturdy and with good wood, Talise knew enough to know it was an expensive piece of property. Some family with money who used it as a getaway. The front of the cabin looked worse than the rear. Another porch, this one open and supported by thick pillars leading to the front door. One of the pillars formed a wide V shape, splintered wood strewn at the break point. More crushed steps, now covered in snow, led toward a shattered front door. The frame stood bashed and broken, easily enough room for 2 and maybe 3 people walk abreast through the opening. The wood logs were stained a rustic red, but at the front, impact points dented the siding. Circular breaks, a lot bigger than a human hand, impressed wood. Talise called a halt.
Milla, see if there are any samples. Hair, nails, I don't know.
She headed up the steps to the nearest damage point, the dent tall enough she looked it in the eye.
Bigfoot?
Body asked.
I don't know. Something strong.
And freaking big.
Robin stopped her team next to an overturned Jeep, a stone's throw up the road. Talise thought about calling them back, but they needed any information they could get.
Command didn't get any helpful information?
Kali asked.
Nothing other than the massive EM spike. You heard what we all heard from the 911 call. Lots of yelling, multiple gunshots, and that bellow. Whatever happened, it was going down when they called.
That screech, or scream.
Kali said.
It sounded like some kind of pissed off elephant.
Yeah.
Body added.
Loud as shit. Drowned out the dude's words when it screamed at him. Some kind of mastodon or something?
He asked.
I know they're extinct, but it did sound sort of like an elephant. Maybe.
Talise gestured to the floorboards of the porch.
Whatever walked across these had a lot of pounds to it, but it walked on 2 legs.
Body seemed to notice the steps for the first time and just stared.
Shit, you're right, Cap. Fuck me, it's gotta be one of those Bigfoots. Wonder what they did to piss it off.
Captain!
Robbins called.
What?
Talise called, turning.
We've got eyes on the DNR truck. It's down the road laying on its side and beat to hell. Recon it?
Talise ran her eyes over the woods.
No. Stay tight. We keep together. Keep eyes on it in the woods. You too, Timmer. We're going inside.
We go in as soon as Milla finishes.
She told her team.
2 and 2. Body, you and Kali head upstairs. We'll check out ground level.
No hair or anything for the lab. I swabbed the wood and took pics.
Good. Stay with me. Let's go.
Entering the cabin, they spotted more indents in the floorboards, except there was no front or back to the prints. Each looked rounded like someone stamped circles into the floor. The ceilings stretched 12 feet up. A side table next to the door lay on its face, the backside punched through. Coats from a stand sprayed across the entryway. Talise knelt to inspect rifle casings on the floor.
Winchester,
She answered.
someone fired from the doorway.
Doesn't look like it did any good.
Bodhi said.
I don't see blood anywhere.
Right, so be careful. Check out the entire upstairs and meet back in 5.
Bodhi shouldered his rocket gun, pulling out an automatic pistol. Kali kept her rifle in hand and they headed toward a stairway. The steps weren't damaged, so Talise followed the crunched wood in the floor. Entering a smashed archway to a dining area, she spotted the first body. A heavyset male wearing a gray sweater slumped next to the wall. Dried blood stained the floor all around him. Circular indents in the wood suggested it walked up and pummeled the man. Milla knelt, checking him out. The dining room table lay against the wall to Talisa's left, one of its legs broken off and looking like someone just grabbed and threw it.
Smashed his skull, Talise. Punched his chest in 2. He had a magnum. He got 2 rounds off. I found a phone.
Bag it.
Talise ordered.
We take them all in case they got video or pictures.
An archway led to another room and Talisa headed through it, finding the kitchen. The room looked intact and the archway showed no signs of anything muscling its way in. She saw no people and walked to the other side, circling back around toward the main entryway. Heading in the other direction, she spied more tracks, more broken furniture, and several shell casings at the threshold of a crushed door frame. 2 bodies sprawled out on the floor. The first, a woman laying on her side, dried blood covering her face and her body crumpled in odd ways. The other, a man, lay face down, one of his arms bent the wrong way, a crumpled mess.
Whatever it is, it's mean as hell.
Milla said over her shoulder.
Yeah, I hope the other 2 find something upstairs. It would be nice to have some kind of record. Cameras, phone footage? I don't know.
Something wailed. It originated outside, a long, drawn-out call. Talise nodded and Milla joined her in the center of the cabin. The thump of boots on steps told her Kali and Bodhi headed their way.
What's up?
She heard from the stairs.
Don't know. Outside.
Oh, there's something now.
Kali said.
It's a big something, too. You feel it?
Talise did feel something. Not quite a presence so much as a concentration. She wasn't nearly as good as Kali at detecting the paranormal. Kali had been doing it since she was a kid, and she felt stuff a long way off, and in a lot more detail. Talise practiced Kali's trainings, but she didn't even come close to the same level of sensitivity. She shrugged and herded everyone forward with a nod. They exited, spying Robbins and her team at the overturned Jeep, using it for cover. Their heads all pointed down the road, and they leveled their guns in the same direction.
What is it?
Talise called. Robbins pointed toward the trees to the left of the road. Something bellowed again. It reverberated in Talise's ears, telling her the power of the lungs belting it out. And it did sound similar to an elephant, a low guttural roar ending in more of a scream or a screech.
Robbins!
Talise hissed.
Back to us!
It's coming.
She called.
It's knocking down smaller trees.
Instead of retreating, they raised their rifles, nestling into the sides of the overturned Jeep.
Damn it, Robbins! Back!
A reverberating roar erupted from the woods. Silence settled for several seconds, and then the snap of a small tree caught in Talise's ears. Somewhere beyond, she watched a 20-foot tree shudder. Immediately, all of Robbins's people let loose. They fired their automatics, a staccato of bullets cutting the quiet. Talise jumped from the porch and took up position, kneeling and leveling her own rifle. Everyone fanned out around her, and she heard Timur and his people running to their side. She watched the wood line as smaller trees crunched, huge branches shook. Robbins's guns got its attention because a sapling launched, striking the roof of the Jeep and ricocheting to the ground. The shrill scream echoed again. Talise trained her scope on the scene, sliding left and right to get a bead on the thing. She panned back and forth, confused because she saw nothing. Robbins and her crew fired at something, but she didn't spot it. The brush fell away, 2 saplings parting and shoved to the ground. Robbins cried out and the firing continued. Talise saw nothing.
What the fuck?
Robbins and her team exhausted clips, but no creature emerged from the tree line. Talise saw no elephant, no Bigfoot, no walking monster. The wood appeared empty of animals or creatures. Through her scope, she spied the snow crunching down like steps. A huge span ahead, another section of the snow compressed downward like someone stomping, but she saw no body, no animal.
Robbins, get out of there!
It screamed again, and this time the decibels froze everyone. Talise felt the roar all the way through her, jerking her mind to a halt. Everyone on Robbins' team cried out, but they finally backed off from the Jeep. It stomped onto the road and Robbins yelled, emptying her entire magazine toward the road. Talise saw the casing spraying out the side. Tallis caught movement. Her bullets ricocheted off of something 20 yards in front of her. Emptying the gun, Robbins turned and ran. The Jeep lifted off the ground, like Godzilla grabbing a hunk of the train, and Talise could only stare as the Jeep fired forward like a rock from a slingshot. It smashed through Robbins, bounced up off the ground, and clipped another of her people, sending him flopping to the ground. Her third man tossed an explosive charge. Seconds ticked, and Talise ducked her head. The explosion echoed, and raising up, she watched a cloud of snow and dust billow into the air. For a brief moment, against the silhouette of the snow and dirt, she caught an image. Something big and broad, taller than the Jeep by at least half again as much. It had thick arms and legs and walked like a person. It didn't seem to have a head, only a thick mass where its shoulders ended. The shape disappeared in a swirl of snow, and it bellowed again.
Kill it!
Tallis yelled. Gunfire broke the quiet. Tallis aimed with her scope, sighting where the grenade detonated. She strafed the area with bullets, sliding the barrel of her rifle back and forth.
Goddamn invisible.
Callie spat.
It's not showing up on infrared either. What the fuck?
Tallis glanced at Bodhi, who'd shouldered his rocket gun but wasn't firing.
Bodhi, goddammit! Shoot that fucker!
I might hit Robin's team,
he said. Talise looked back to see Robbins' third member sprint behind a tree. Her second man lay on the ground, crawling for his gun. Behind him, something thumped down in the snow on the road. Another print, it stalked him from behind. Talise aimed low. She fired repeatedly, trying to clip it in the leg to slow it down or get its attention on them, but nothing any of them did seemed to distract it. The second man suddenly wrenched off the ground by his leg, a scream escaping his throat. His entire body jerked backwards, flailing like a kid's doll. His body heaved forward toward the third man. The trooper's limbs flopped until it thudded into the ground, rolling into a lifeless heap. 2 more footsteps appeared in the snow, and the Jeep lifted off the ground again.
Move it!
Talise called and ran for the cabin. Everyone scattered. Tracking the Jeep, Talise saw it launch into the air. It didn't head their way, but toward Robbins' last trooper. The man sprinted toward them, but the Jeep smacked the ground, bouncing and rolling, pieces of it scattering in all directions. The Jeep caught the trooper, crushing him under it. Talise counted heads as they made the porch. Timmer's team ducked back to the corner of the cabin.
Body, goddammit, shoot it!
He looked her way, unbelieving, and she grabbed his jacket.
They're all dead. Shoot it!
He snapped his head around, took a breath, and kneeled on the porch. The gun took both hands to aim, and she knew it weighed more than a bazooka, plus the shells it held. Callie and Milla backed off to the sides as he aimed.
Where the hell do I shoot? I can't even see it.
Damn it, Body, look for its steps. Stop arguing and kill it.
He leaned into the gun, and Talise heard the click of the trigger. She felt the thwump of the round leaving the chamber. She took in a breath and then watched part of the front yard explode. Chunks of ice and frozen earth blew into the air. It roared again, shaking the glass in the cabin.
Hit it again. Empty it.
Body fired the rest of his ammo, 5 thuds echoing in their ears, followed by explosions. One, aimed higher, missed, detonating on a tree across the far side. The other 4 blew earth and snow, raining it down on them. Silence. The cloud drifted in the air, debris pluming upward. Talise's eyes scoured the ground and the road looking for movement, her eyes darting at the shifting cloud. Quiet settled over them.
Any more shells?
2.
Load them up.
And he got on it.
Those shells are badass.
Callie muttered.
Take down an elephant easy.
Everyone stayed crouched, guns trained in front of them.
Should we retrieve Robbins and her people?
Body asked.
Wait,
Talise told him. Something swirled in the haze of dust and snow. A flash of light momentarily blinded them. A monstrous roar cut through the debris, higher pitched now, longer and more drawn out. It shook Talise's entire body. Something crushed down a patch of snow, maybe 2 meters in front, another circular print thumped down. Talise spat out curses.
Everyone back through the house. Use it as cover. Timmer, meet us around back.
Talise put a hand on Bodhi's shoulder.
Save the last 2. Milla, shoot the piss out of it. Draw it to us. I'm calling in evac and more choppers.
It's miles back to the drop point,
Body said.
Yep, so you better save your breath.
Milla fired, earning a scream in their direction. Talise pushed Callie and Body through the doorway. The prince shifted direction, and after a few steps, she saw the Jeep rock on its side.
Goddamn thing's got a love affair going with that Jeep,
she said.
Milla, let's go. You know where it's heading.
They retreated into the house, and after an 8 count, they heard the Jeep slam into the front wall, smashing glass, shoving in timbers, and shaking the entire cabin.
Now what?
Milla called out.
Keep shooting at it. Draw it inside, and then we sprint for the drop point. Don't let it get close.
Milla got into a steady rhythm, firing short bursts through the windows and the front door, backstepping after each discharge.
Cap, what about the chopper?
Bodhi asked.
I'm calling it in. Move your ass!
They made the back door, and Talise grabbed her radio.
Command, we need immediate evac. At the drop point. We need air support, scorched earth level.
Something thumped against the front of the cabin. Milla emptied her clip and loaded another, retreating to the back door.
It's pissed!
Its shriek cut through the walls, pierced the air and into them, shaking the entire house. Talise felt the floorboards shudder and heard the front doorway explode inward.
Go!
She barked.
Milla, drop grenades and run.
They ran out the back door and into the trees. Tallis took head counts, content all of her people, and Timmer's team made it. Milla jumped over a fallen log as grenades exploded inside the house. Instead of waiting to see the outcome, they hustled back the way they came, toward the drop point. After several seconds of silence, the thing bellowed again. Talise hoped it would disorient whatever it was long enough for them to get gone. She knew it could follow their tracks, but it didn't seem to be quick, or at least not in any hurry while they fired at it. Either way, it became a full-on run to the drop point and the choppers. They crested a hill, and Talise ordered a stop. Everyone leaned against trees to regain their breath, panting and heaving. She listened as she sucked in breaths, her eyes locked downhill, body slumped against a tree, heaving breaths. Sweat dribbled down the sides of his cheeks. Body towered over everyone else, but that rocket gun had a lot of pounds to it.
You okay?
She asked.
I'll make it,
He replied, gulping in breaths.
I'm not letting that thing get its hands on me, if it's even got hands.
Something cracked. Perhaps 100 yards below, Talise saw a smaller tree snap, spinning to the ground. Unbelieving, she saw a circular patch of snow crunch down. Another closer to them crushed into the forest floor.
Fuck. It's tracking us. Move.
They took off again, adrenaline pushing them. A couple of Timmer's people dumped their packs and bigger rifles. Talise thought about yelling, but none of their guns affected it. They crawled upward through the tree line, and Tallis actually grinned as she heard the sounds she wanted to hear, the whirl of copter blades. Breaking over a rise, she spotted their chopper, and it gave her the last push she needed to make it. They made it to the door, sucking in air, panting and groaning. Counting heads one more time, she climbed up inside.
Are they sending in air support?
Yes, ma'am. 4 choppers en route. They want you to give them specs on the target.
Talise snorted. Climbing up front, she allowed herself 3 more breaths before taking the radio.
Command.
What's the story?
It's following us to the drop point. We're pulling up to see if we can lure it into the open so you can hit it.
What is it?
Fuck if I know. It's invisible, and it doesn't show up on thermal.
Silence.
How are we supposed to hit it?
It's making tracks in the snow. Shoot in front of them.
Talise nodded to the pilot,
Take off but stay inside of the hill.
and she considered.
Not too low, though. That fucker tossed a Jeep at us.
A what? Are you kidding?
Threw it like it was a goddamn football.
They pulled up. Above the sounds of the chopper blades, Talise heard its roar. She looked into the trees, and after several moments, she spied more prints in the snow. It still chased after them. She let a few obscenities fly and watched as it broke the trees, stomping its way toward where they'd taken off.
Kali fires some shots at it. Keep it focused on us.
She turned back to the pilot.
Where's our air support?
2 minutes out.
Talise, what if it throws something at us?
She nodded.
Pilot, take us up further. Another 100 meters.
We're already up 100.
It threw a fucking Jeep at us. Overhand.
The pilot raised them up. Callie fired off rounds through her rifle. It earned them a scream, and then a bush yanked out of the frozen earth. Lifted into the air by some unseen hand or claw, it launched at them. Despite the distance, it got close.
Take it up some more.
Talise yelled.
Kali, keep pissing it off.
Out of the corner of her eye, she saw 4 helicopters gliding in. Talise got on the radio.
It's out in the open. Look for footprints in the snow. Shoot the frontmost. Fuck it. Burn the entire hill to the soil.
They watched the choppers close in. Glancing back to the hill, she spotted a huge chunk of rock or dirt pulled out of the hillside. It fired up at them. Heavier and denser, the missile sailed a long way but didn't reach them. The invisible thing screeched at them over and over. The choppers descended, and they all watched as incendiary barrel bombs dropped out of the bays, one after the other. The entire crest of the hill erupted in fire and black smoke. Even from their distance, Talise felt a wave of heat roll through the open door. 4 bombs dropped close to where Talise saw the last set of prints. They hovered and watched as fire engulfed everything, instantly melting the snow for tens of yards in all directions. Fire crawled up the trunks of the closest trees. Silence hung below. No bellows, no roars, and no more missiles shot up at them from the ground.
It has to be dead.
Bodhi got out.
Those barrel bombs incinerate everything. All we have to do is to go back and collect the body. Figure out what the fuck it was.
The spot's marked. We have to report in 3 casualties.
Command, this is 7.
Came over the comms. Everyone quieted as one of the copters dropped lower. The hillside was charred black and still burning. Swirls of smoke blew in every direction, scattered by the chopper's blades. Talise's eyes shifted at every swirl in the smoke.
7. What's the status?
We're over the strike zone. There's too much smoke. Give it a minute.
A bright flare of light strobed like a huge camera flash. Talise saw lights behind her eyes. A chunk of earth fired up out of the broil of smog. It crunched the nose of the helicopter. The comms lit up with profanity. Overbalanced, the copter wobbled in the air. Dipping downward, it pitched sideways and slammed into the side of the hill. The rotors kicked ash and dirt into the air, and the rear section caught on fire.
Get out of there,
someone shouted over the comms. The other copters pulled up higher. The comms blurted out a series of questions and commands, everyone talking and yelling at once.
Kali?
Talise barked.
Start firing again. See if you can keep it pissed at us instead of the down chopper.
Kali sighted in and squeezed off shots. In the smoke and dust, Talise caught a glimpse of a shape moving along the hill. The same as before, it looked like a hulking mass lumbering across the ground. She couldn't make out a head, but it had incredibly thick arms and legs. It stalked straight toward the downed helicopter. She didn't see anyone jumping out of the cockpit.
Damn it! Someone get that thing's attention.
Talise turned and grabbed up the radio.
It's going for the copter,
she shouted.
Someone, anyone, start firing on that thing. Get its attention back on us.
One of the copters shifted around in the air, and a minigun blared, firing into the path of the debris. Talise thought she saw an arm sweep across, and then it bellowed. Even from their height and against the staccato of the chopper blades, Talise heard it. Everyone did. It stomped to the downed chopper, flames roaring out of the backside. The thing appeared oblivious to the fire. It grabbed the tail and actually tried to lift the entire helicopter. Instead, the tail snapped off, earning another roar from the monstrosity. The entire helicopter exploded into a pillar of fire.
Holy God,
Body muttered.
The rest of its munitions blew.
Milla answered, muttering a string of obscenities.
Back out.
Talise yelled.
All teams out and up. Get out of its range.
Talise only shook her head as the tail end flung upwards at one of the other helicopters. Unbalanced, it wobbled upwards but missed its target, arcing back to the ground. Another scream erupted from below, but Talise witnessed the monstrous shape wading into the fire and smoke. The burning copter shuddered and then hoisted off the ground. It launched upwards at them, burning fuel and the remains of barrel bombs splattering against something solid underneath. Another wail, but the copter only flew 50 yards or more before dropping down, crashing along the far side of the hill until it smashed into the tree line.
Do we engage?
Someone called.
No.
Talise barked.
Everyone back off. At least a quarter mile up. No one gets close.
This is command. We've got eyes from your cameras. Keep a perimeter, but do not engage. Keep eyes on its path.
What do we do now?
Bodhi asked.
It just shrugged off the fire like it was a bath. What the hell?
Follow it until we can get better firepower.
Kali leaned back and snarling.
What?
I don't know how, but we have to get better weapons. These things are kicking our asses.
I know.
Bodhi's rocket gun didn't even stop it.
I know. Henry and his team are working it.
Kali cussed under her breath. The smoke dissipated, but it stood on the ground, draped in a black and gray cloud. It screamed at them continuously. Talise caught a glimpse of movement and then spotted a footprint in the ash. The cries died, and more footprints showed themselves in the charred hillside. A print appeared in the snow at the edge of the trees.
It's leaving.
Milla spat.
What do we do now?
Body asked. Talise shook her head,
We're going to need tanks or something bigger.
and she grabbed the radio.
Command, this is Randall. It's retreating to the woods. None of our weapons stopped it. Suggest a 5-mile wide perimeter for the area.
Copy. Return to base for debriefing.
Command, there's a chopper down. No signs of survivors.
Copy. We'll take care of it. Do any personnel need the cleanser?
Talise looked over her people and got head shaking in response. Timur's team reacted the same.
Tell them we're good for now.
Talise answered.
Chances are we'll sleep okay tonight.
In this gripping episode, we saw Talise lead her team through a harrowing encounter with an unseen enemy. Their fight for survival against this mysterious threat kept us captivated. This story is our second episode by Craig Crawford in the Project Treshold series. If you liked this one, make sure to watch The Cave, a story featuring Captain Berger's team. The link is on the left. Thank you to Red Cape Publishing for allowing us to share this thrilling episode. That's all for today. This is Nigel Watson, and you have been watching Tales from the Cryptkeeper, where AI meets unspeakable horrors.